Hello and welcome to section 2 of chapter 9. We're going to be spending Monday and Tuesday going over populations and communities. This is on page 316. So go ahead and open up your textbooks to page 316. During this lesson, we are going to talk about how do individuals and groups of organisms interact, and what are some examples of symbiotic relationships? You might have talked about this already in a previous grade, but it doesn't hurt to review over these things. Today we're going to be talking about populations specifically, but first I wanted to start with some disagree or agree statements. So do you disagree or agree with this statement? Changes that occur in an ecosystem can cause populations to become larger or smaller. Do you agree or disagree? Agree. Yeah, changes that occur in an ecosystem can affect population size. A drought where there is not a lot of food, maybe a volcano eruption, something that changes the ecosystem can have an impact on population size. All right, let's look at the second one. Some organisms have relationships with other type of organisms that help them to survive. Do you agree or disagree? Yeah, it's agree again. There are what we call symbiosis or relationships between other organisms that have a goal to help them to survive. That's basically the definition of symbiosis. Good. So let's get into it. We talked about populations last week. Populations are made up of all members of one species that live in an area, not just all the trees or all the flowers. No, maple trees would be one population, and elm trees would be another population. Grizzly bears would be one population, white-tailed deer, so all of one species. And areas that populations live in can be big or small. Some are limited to a pond, others maybe would have a forest. And abiotic and biotic factors can affect the population as well. Remember, abiotic is not living and biotic is living. Abiotic is temperature, sunlight, water, soil, or the rock. Biotic would be different species of things as well, like producers, consumers, plants, bacteria, animals. All of that can affect the population. Population size can increase or decrease. Examples of population size increasing are when individuals move into an area and join the population that's already there, or more individuals are born. Population size can also decrease when individuals move away, individuals die, and the ecosystem changes. Although the ecosystem changing can also increase population size. An example of an ecosystem changing is deforestation. I know Once Upon a Forest, if you ever saw that movie as a kid, it's a movie that came out when I was a kid, so I'm a lot older than you, so probably you haven't seen it, but Fern Gully would be another one where deforestation just kind of changed the ecosystem. Different species cannot live there, they have to move away, and the population has decreased. Population density. So population and population density are two different things. Population is just how many people or how many of a species is there. Population density takes it one step further and says the number of organisms in the population relative to the amount of space available. So let's say if I'm on a tiled floor, if you have a tiled floor in front of you, visualize this with me. And I have 10 paper clips, and I put one paper clip in each tile. I have 10 tiles, so 10 paper clips, one paper clip in each tile. I have a population of 10, but my population density is one clip per tile. Now let's say I take all 10 of those paper clips and put them in one tile. I still have a population of 10, but now my population density has become 10 paper clips per tile. considering that one tile. So population density and population are not the same thing. We're talking about organisms relative to the amount of space. If you have a very dense population, you're sharing a limited space. Resources that you use for shelter and food and water, they might be scarce, and your population might be halted and not able to grow. It is time for the Dutch phrase of the day. That's right, we're continuing it. Some of you guys were using it in practice, and that's great. Hopefully, if I see you guys, we can say hoe gaat het, and you can say het gaat goed, or here's another thing that you can say. This is ik ben moe, like a cow, moo. Even though it says mo, don't say mo, it's like a cow, moo. So this is ik is I, ben is am, and moo is tired. So I don't know if you're like Mrs. Bulwark, but you've been pretty tired lately. You've got a lot of schoolwork to do, having a hard time keeping track with everything. So if I say hoe gaat het, you could say ik ben moe. And I would probably say ik ook, which means me too. So ik ben moe. Write that down. You're going to need to put that on your homework on Friday. All right. We're last going to talk about limiting factors today. There are 3 limiting factors that your book mentions. A limiting factor, according to your textbook, is factors that can limit the growth of a population. The amount of water, space, shelter, and food can all affect a population size. There are other factors like predation, competition, and disease that also limit them as well. So, and there's a nice picture on page 319 of limiting factors when it comes to rabbits. So, biotic potential. It says imagine a population of rabbits with an unlimited supply of food, unlimited amount of land to live on, and no predators. That supply of rabbits, I mean, I don't know if you've heard the phrase like multiply like bunnies, but bunnies reproduce quickly. And so there would be a lot of bunnies there because there was nothing there to limit their population. Biotic potential is the potential growth of a population if it could grow in perfect conditions with no limiting factors. So it's like perfect scenario, unlimited supply of things, and you can just keep reproducing. That is biotic potential. However, we have things that limit populations. The population's rate of birth is the highest in biotic potential it can be, and the rate of death is the lowest. Carrying capacity is a limiting factor. Carrying capacity is the largest number of individuals of one species that an ecosystem can support over time. After I finish this slide, on the next slide I have a graph that shows carrying capacity, but it basically has a line of where we have enough resources to handle this amount of your population. If you go over, we do not have enough resources and your population will fall. And then we have overpopulation as another example as a limiting factor. If a population becomes larger than the carrying capacity, you can see this in the graph, it grows beyond the ability of an area to support it. Overcrowding, lack of resource, and an unhealthy environment. So the trout in a lake, your book says, would not grow very large. Waste built up might build faster than it can be broken down, which can cause pollution to be that can cause the population to be sick. Yeah, because if you have a very dense population, there's a really high probability for disease, which is one of the reasons why we have been social distancing. We don't want to overpopulate an area so that we can all be healthy and not get each other sick, because large groups of people all together, disease spreads. All right, this is a carrying capacity graph. I really like this graph because I think it shows just the limiting factors of an area. So this line, this straight dotted line, is the carrying capacity. This means this amount of resources to support a population. Now, if you look at the beginning of a population, it goes up a lot. We call that exponential growth. If it's a very steep curve of a graph and it is growing up very quickly, we'll call that exponential growth. However, notice what happens both times it crosses over the line. When it crosses over the line, it becomes overpopulated. And then look what happens. It goes right back down because this is the line. This is how many resources they have to provide for your population at the most. Going over the line, you do not have enough resources anymore. And so part of your population will die off. And then you will dip below the carrying capacity. But then look, there are enough supplies and resources for everybody. So the population grows. And then it will go over and it'll be overpopulated again. And then the population will fall again. And it'll kind of just, after exponential growth, it'll kind of teeter-totter along that carrying capacity line. All right, don't forget the Dutch phrase, and I will talk to you tomorrow as we finish this section. Bye!